Alright, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and whatever time zone you are in. I am nailing that catchphrase. Yes, I am. Well, anyway, welcome. This is not a walkthrough of Final Fantasy VII Remake or Intermission because I have finished both of them in terms of the main story and Intermission's main story too. This is going to be a verdict video of Intermission, switching over to Yuffie's Shuriken. So, let's start with the verdict. 7 out of 10. I'll tell you what the negative is with Intermission. I think a 7 out of 10 is very appropriate, and I think it's a fitting score for Intermission. Let's just get to it. Negative, Fort Condor. Fort Condor is not bad. I don't think it's like a bad idea. I just don't think it's a great idea. I really detest it. It's kind of like a board game, but with 3D aesthetics, where the soldiers, silver soldiers, and it's like, how do I describe it? Gosh, I have no way to describe it. Well, anyway, it's one side, you're on one side, the enemy is on the other side, you're trying to destroy 3 statues to destroy or beat them in the game. It wasn't appealing to me, and I hated that all the characters that I did like, side characters or main characters, were promoting Fort Condor. It's just not a fun side mission. I have played 95% of minigames in the original Final Fantasy VII. Fort Condor was a location. It was a fun location. It was another iconic location on Final Fantasy VII locations. But to apply it as a minigame for something they're going to put in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, it was not a great idea in Intermission. I think it could have been left out entirely. The side quests were not fun in the main story, the OG Final Fantasy VII Remake, but it's not fun in Intermission. The side missions, that'll be another complaint. But for Fort Condor, once you play one match or a few, you're just not gonna... It's a love it or hate it thing. Some people might enjoy it. Some people might like those kind of classic board setups. I didn't. I did enjoy it. I played one match of it and I was already done. I was like, I'm already done. Maybe I will play a little bit more in between streaming, but it was nothing that I needed to be like, oh, I want to do the side mission. Like that snowboarding minigame for the original Final Fantasy VII, or the Golden Saucer, like all their arcadey stuff. There was just no appeal, there was no urgency. Well, not urgency, there was no incentive to play Fort Condor. I just was bored out of tears. I just did not want it. I didn't have the incentive and the motivation to spend time on it. I just wanted to get straight to the story mission for Intermission and never come back to Fort Condor. Like I said, I know we'll probably get a trophy for doing all the Fort Condor in the 2 chapters. Well, I guess 1 chapter. I was not having a fun time with it. And that's the point of being a gamer. You're supposed to have fun in the video game, not supposed to be bored or something that's tedious. It's tedious. Another complaint with the Intermission is the side quests. I don't think the side quests were handled well. They were not great in the main story. That was actually one flaw from the main story that I didn't highly enjoy. I wish they actually took the side quests out or made them interesting, like the original Final Fantasy VII. I mean, all you have to do is collect posters for a very enthusiastic turtle guy. That was fun. That was fun, but it's a chore. It's grocery shopping. You're looking for flyers to give to the guy to get materia or some other special items. It's not really worth your time too. I'm glad in the 2nd chapter they just focused on the main story and that's it. They didn't focus on anything else. Even the boxes that they brought back in the original main story, it was fun-ish, but nothing to, revisit like off and on. It's something that just kind of like wastes your time a little bit, but it's not bad. They brought that back. but all the side quests for the first chapter were just abysmal or just plain out straight up boring. You're Yeah, that's a major complaint. I didn't like the side quests in Intermission as much, but it wasn't anything groundbreaking in the main story. Hopefully they fix that in Rebirth, since they got time. They got till next winter, so they got time to fix those side quests or get them out of there. Get them out of there, please. All right. Another complaint with it. $20 for another complaint for Intermission. $20 for 4 hours of gameplay and story combined together. That ain't worth it. $20. You're spending $20 to do that. Or if there's a PlayStation deal of $15, I still think that's too much. I think the DLC could have been 10 or less than 10. You'll still get a little excitement, and I'll explain the positive. But I think $20 is too much for what content we got. I don't know. I think that's just like, that's lazy. It was lazy. It was lazy. I'll go into more detail on that, because once you start, there's only 2 chapters compared to the 18 chapters of the main story, which could take you up to 40 hours or 35, and it's all marvelous. It's paced well, and I could go on with the main story, but we'd be here all day. Intermission, you get 2 chapters, and between the 2 chapters, if you are going to complete this fully, it'll take you 5 to 6 hours, but that's not much. And if you play just the main story, which I just did, just to get it over with, it just takes 4 hours. I kid you not. Look. Took me 4 hours and 23 minutes. That says enough. I recommend you rent this. If it's an option to rent Intermission, please rent it. Don't spend $20 on it. You're gonna do yourself disservice. And I gotta admit, I was not impressed that it was over in 4 hours. I just felt like there was more that needed to... Yeah, I felt like there needed to be more content. If you're going to be a DLC for Final Fantasy VII Remake or OG Final Fantasy VII, the least you could have did is give us more content. I just felt like they gave us a half measure. That's how Intermission felt throughout the entire experience. Yeah, throughout the entire experience. Half measure. They went half measure until they give us the real stuff in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It's like all their budget went to Final Fantasy VII Remake, and now they need to do the real project, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. That's it. That's really it. It just seems like they just did half measure on it, and that's the best way to describe this. Half measure on Intermission. Okay, and the last complaint I have with Intermission, to get straight to the point, it felt sequel bait. You probably heard that word before, but it felt sequel-y or sequel bait. Yuffie basically losing Sonon, and that would hit me, but Nero has him. He took him into the darkness, and we'll go into theories. That's going to be the second part of this video. I hope it's not going to go over 30 minutes, but I will try to get to the important points for my Final Fantasy VII theories that I wanted to do in the main story campaign-wise once I finished it, but I'm going to do it in this one. I think this is the perfect video to do it. But sequel bait for Intermission, it just felt like Yuffie was destined to... She's going to be destined to meet Final Fantasy... the OG Final Fantasy VII characters from Remake. That's a fact, and it was leading up to it. Sonon being kidnapped by, or once he died, Disney death-wise, then he got taken by Nero, which is leading up to maybe Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, or the third one that's not titled yet. Scarlet surviving Intermission was basically, we know in the OG Final Fantasy VII, the original one, that Scarlet survives to a certain point until I think she dies in the... Well, spoilers. I guess I can't go into that, but if you play the original Final Fantasy VII, it's not a spoiler what happens in Scarlet, but I knew she was going to survive because she's in the original main story one. This is happening before Sector 7, or was it 8? That I think it was Sector 7's plate drop. What am I saying? It's Sector 7, my bad. Yeah, it just felt like they played it safe instead of trying to be its own identity, and it did, to a certain extent. It just felt like all this stuff was just giving us like hints of, hey, here's a half-measure game to give us until Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Have fun with that. Here's your half-measure ticket, half-measure contact, and have fun with it. No, we didn't try. We're saving all our best material behind this closed door with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. That's how it felt the entire time. And I really like this behind-the-scenes intermission. It just felt too close to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. They even blocked the scenes of literally, and I wish I could have recorded it, but I had to find a trick to record it. They even blocked the scenes of Zack going to see Aerith, and I'm going to touch on that. But they blocked that scene out for some reason. I guess that's for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which I don't know why. I think that was going to be okay to show that block scene, but nope, they blocked it. They even blocked the scene where Cloud and crew just basically goes to Calm, and we see the Chocobo the ranch owner that you saw in Calm briefly. He takes you much earlier to Calm than how you guys originally got there. I remember how you got there. You just walked there, and it took a very long time. You didn't get a car to take. You didn't meet the guy until you got to Calm. So I think that's where the time travel comes into play. I see why you guys blocked that scene. I just think you could have showed the one with Zack and not seen Aerith. I think that's pretty important because of the bombshell that you dropped in Final Fantasy VII Remake. But I guess that goes into my theory. But it's still a part of the verdict and still negative. I just think you should have showed that scene and not block it. But I get it. It's probably in the next game, and that's how Intermission feel. Like, oh, it's in the next game. Oh, it's in the next game. Oh, it's in the next game. And I'm like, come on, stop doing that. You're actually, I'm enjoying you, but you keep setting up for the sequel too much. It happened way too often. It just felt like all the characters we're seeing in Intermission we're going to see in the sequel. Even Sonon, who supposedly died, but he didn't really die. It was like Disney death. Disney death. Yeah, so that's really the negative with Intermission. I just think there was too many flaws to give it an 8, and it doesn't deserve a 9 because it was just not enough content and enough great stuff to make it a 9. 7 out of 10 is there for the appropriate. Now, to positive. Yuffie and Sonon. Yuffie and Sonon are great characters. I like playing as Yuffie. I wish we got to play as Sonon, but it works. And I'll get straight to it. So Yuffie, we already liked her in original Final Fantasy VII. She just got the Final Fantasy VII Remake upgrade. She got the Final Fantasy VII Remake treatment, and it's done well. You like her personality. You like how she retains her original traits from the original Final Fantasy VII. She's storky, she's lovable, she's vulnerable in the best way. Even if it was 4 hours, I felt like I got to know Yuffie, and I'm excited how they're gonna treat her in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, because all that 4-hour character development was done and fleshed out well. It was fleshed out well. I have to admit, I was more involved with Yuffie because she was done extremely well in Intermission. You just felt like you know her personally. And you got to know Sonon. Very impressed for a new character they just introduced out of nowhere, but you instantly like him from the beginning, and you like him towards the end too. It's sad what happens to him towards the end, and it hit me too. I was like, I like Sonon. I didn't want him to die like that. It does suck. But yeah, he has a great personality. Like his backstory. I'm curious of what they're going to do with him in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth because of the ending. That will be in my theory video to the second half. But yeah, I'm curious of what they'll do. But overall, great new character, and they're both voiced well, extremely voiced well. For anime voice actor that we already knew, he just does well in this one. For a new-ish anime actress for Yuffie that I never really heard before a lot, but she did extremely well too. In fact, excellent. They're great characters. It just main story characters are better because we got to spend more time with them, but intermission characters for the short time we got to spend with them, fantastic. Fantastic characters with fantastic voice acting. The graphics are still top notch. That's another positive. Whatever, even if you play the main story, or if you play intermission, you're not going to be disappointed with the graphics. The graphics are freaking tastic in any of the versions you play. You're not going to be disappointed on that. Another positive with intermission that I was pleasantly shocked. It was the gameplay. Because it was a synergy between Yuffie and Sonon. It was interesting you didn't get to control Sonon, but having those two fight together or separate is just it's integrated so well. Because whenever they do a team attack, it works so well. And it's so flashy, it's snappy, it's easy to use, and it just makes boss battles and regular battles just so unique. It's so unique with the way they fought. So they're great characters, and they have great styles. Even if we didn't get to play Sonon, it was exciting to have him as a support character who just kicks so much butt with Yuffie. That was exciting. That was exciting the entire time. Every time I got to use synergy, I liked it. Even with the boss battle with Nero, super fun. It was super fun. That is one of the major positives. The characters, the comeback, because it's still Final Fantasy VII Remake, but with the new twist, and it did it pretty well. I'm gonna be curious of what they do with Yuffie's playstyle if they will do it again in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. They probably won't, and that's okay. But I'm glad we got it in intermission. They'll probably do another DLC in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I really hope not, but they will. It'll probably be on Vincent or Sid. Please be Vincent. Vincent's an interesting character. You can do a lot with that. And the music was fantastic too. Just like Final Fantasy VII Remake, great remixes of the original themes and great new tracks. This is no exception. Yuffie's theme is beautifully remixed. Sonon's theme is also remixed, or it's a new theme, done well. It's a fantastic soundtrack for both versions. You're not going to be disappointed at all. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got. I think 7 out of 10 is still good for what it is. I think I'm being generous. I think I could have gave it lower, but I think 7 out of 10 works for it. I don't think it can go above a 7. I don't think it deserves to go above a 7. I don't think it deserves... It doesn't deserve to be above a 7. This main story is 10 out of 10. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. 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 And with intermission, I just didn't feel like, oh shit, like main story. I didn't. And yeah, I just didn't feel that way. The ending was good, but I can't put it as a positive or I can't put it as a negative. And that's kind of in the negative of sequel bait. So, that sums it up. Alright, so we're going to try to make this short as possible because I think I went over 20 minutes or maybe 17 minutes. So, theories. Final Fantasy VII theories. You guys can definitely leave a comment or leave a like or just kind of like some Final Fantasy VII theories. And it's okay you can post a comment because if you haven't played the original Final Fantasy VII, sorry, you're gonna be spoiled. Alright, so I'm gonna turn this down a little bit too. Yeah, that's fine. Alright, so with the OG Final Fantasy VII Remake theories, it's time travel. Or, one theory, theory 1. Time travel. I think Zack is in the same time and space as Cloud and Crew, but I think it's happening in a different time. They're still in the same time and space. I just think Cloud and Crew are already ahead, and Cloud and Zack just got integrated in the new timeline that they did after the ending, the bombshell of the ending. So, it's also in Theory 1 too. I think Zack could also be in a parallel universe. I think his universe doesn't have Cloud or the crew, or it doesn't have Cloud at all. I think he's in a different timeline, and whatever Zack is doing in his timeline has a different result, and what the OG crew, Cloud and crew, are doing is in a different timeline. It could be parallel universes because of the time split, time fracture that they did towards the end of OG Final Fantasy VII. Okay, so Theory 2. Ooh. Okay, so this will kind of go into Intermission because it's not clear yet, but that still goes into parallel universe. All right, so Theory 2, I think, and it's an interesting one, and you guys can definitely argue what I'm saying, but I think Aerith and Sephiroth, and everyone already speculates that too, I think they're post-event children. I think they are somehow, whatever happened in the OG Final Fantasy VII remake, I think they got written into this new timeline, so they were dead in Event Children, as we both know. Spoiler alerts! I'm sorry for Event Children, but if you haven't seen Event Children, where have you been? But I think Aerith and Sephiroth are just post-event children characters. I think they have seen what happened to them in the original timeline, and they know the future of where the original Final Fantasy VII should have gone, but they are rewriting the timeline to correct it. I think Aerith, and I'm sad to say, I think Aerith's gonna straight up die by the third one, because they have to correct the original Final Fantasy VII. They have to go back to, because that's what the Whispers were, trying to keep the time loop stable to follow the original Final Fantasy VII. I think she is trying to put it back to the original Final Fantasy VII, but she's aware that she's going to die, and maybe that's where the third one is going to be, just hit us where we live, because she's going to die. But I think she's very much aware that this isn't the original timeline, and it's something else. It's definitely not about children. And Sephiroth is very much aware too, and I think he's trying to completely change the timeline so that way he ensures his victory. I think we're going to have a bittersweet ending by the third one, but I think that's a good theory, and I think other people quote it online and definitely on videos. I think that's a good theory. I think it's the most safest theory, but it's the most complex theory. So I want to see where they go with that. I want to see if Aerith does have visions of her event children or the original Final Fantasy VII, if she's very much aware, because it seemed like she was very much aware, and I was curious. And then when I replayed some of the Final Fantasy VII, I'm like, she knows. I think she knows. I think she straight up knows. And Sephiroth, the way he's been acting, I was like, I think he's very much knows too. Just because of the edge of creation when he has that fight with Cloud, I think he knows about the fight. He knows Cloud's moveset. So, Cloud, I think he's going to learn some entirely new movesets, new limit breaks, and we're not going to see the same Cloud by the time we get to the third. I think Cloud will be, and every other character will go back to their event children self and kind of Dirge of Cerberus in a sense. Yeah, I'm curious of where they go. Third theory, it has to deal with Intermission. And I didn't call it out in the video for some reason, but that was Deep Ground. Deep Ground was a major group in Dirge of Cerberus. Not the most best Final Fantasy VII compilation. It's not. But yeah, Deep Ground, they awoke and they started being available in Dirge of Cerberus, which happened years after Final Fantasy VII. I didn't catch that, but I thought about it too. I was like, wait, Deep Ground didn't wake up this early. They were never around in the original Final Fantasy VII. In terms of the timeline, it was Final Fantasy VII, the original, then Event Children, then Dirge of Cerberus. So they should have came years after, but they woke up way earlier because we saw Nero and Weiss. Oh, sorry, Vice. So that means we're going to see Genesis, but we saw Genesis in Crisis Core. So is Genesis still dead? I think Final Fantasy VII Remake's ending had ripples effects with Intermission. So stuff that should have not happened earlier, freaking happened. So I'm curious of what, since Deep Ground is very much active and very much alive, I'm curious if we're going to see the characters, the villains from Dirge of Cerberus, and we're going to see Shulk from Dirge of Cerberus. Will those characters show up earlier in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and all that, or once we reset the timeline in third one, because that's where it's leading up to, are we gonna see Deep Ground, or are they gonna be still in Dirge of Cerberus, and we're just gonna follow the original Final Fantasy VII timeline? Just so many theories, so many theories. Okay, so the fourth theory that I think is going to be popular: will Aerith die? Yes, that's a fact. I think Aerith is going to straight up die. Like I said in my second theory-ish, I think she's going to straight up die. If for some reason they actually will have the balls in the third one, since it's a trilogy, since they confirmed it this year that this is a trilogy, which is a smart idea, because I think it's smart to do it as a trilogy, because you have time to flesh out the original Final Fantasy VII while adding something new. But trilogies are the best ideas if you want to do a great game, an excellent game. Final Fantasy VII Remake is going to be an excellent game. I think they know what they're doing. If they don't kill off Aerith, or Aerith, same thing. I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know how they're... I just don't know. I don't know how they're going to save her. Because if they save her, I just don't know how. I just don't see any other possibility or any possible future where she's going to survive. Because in the original Final Fantasy VII, she dies brutally and very sadly. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. And I think they know what they're doing. But no, I just don't see any other possibility besides her dying. There's just no... You have to have a good logical reason, because if you just pull something that just comes out of thin air of a possible future, we're all going to be pissed. I just don't see it. I am curious. If they can do it, and have the balls to do it, I'd be surprised, and I would be excited. That would even make me love the trilogy even more. But I feel like they're going to play it safe and have her die. I think that's a... And not just her. I think Zack is going to die too. I think he's going to go out just like he went out in Crisis Core, but not exactly like that. He's going to save the world. But yeah, I think Aerith and Zack are going to straight up die. Because Zack, we already know he dies in Crisis Core. So I'm sorry if that spoils it, but this is kind of the theory video, so get out if you don't want to be spoiled with other Final Fantasy VII projects. But if you haven't played Crisis Core, I'm sorry, this is spoiling it. I can't think of any other theories that I forgot. Alright, so here's my last theory, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Because, as I think Nomura is saying in a few interviews are saying, this is kind of like the Empire Strikes Back of the Star Wars, but in Final Fantasy. Because the fact that when you look at the symbol for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, on the bottom side, and I look at the title screen or the title logo, there's a red of it's the red symbol at the bottom. Let us know that there is some sinister stuff about to happen. It's gonna get dark. I think the heroes are gonna lose. It's the second of the trilogy, so as I have learned from second of trilogies, it gets real. It gets real and it gets dark and solid character development. I think the heroes are gonna fail. I think they're gonna fail in the most horrible way. I think either if they have the balls, they'll kill Aerith towards the end, the third game, or they'll kill her in the sequel and then just throw the timeline. I think Sephiroth is going to win in a very major way. The Black Materia is going to be involved. The Black Materia is definitely going to be involved. I think we're going to get the original Final Fantasy VII, but it's going to be tweaked to the max. I don't think we're going to be playing the same game that we are. I think we're going to see iconic location like Calm, Golden Saucer, definitely the mountain where you hand the Black Materia. I think that's going to be included, but in a very alternate way. I think it's going to be a different character hand the Black Materia. It could be Cloud, but I think it's going to be Cloud. We're going to be introduced to Vincent and Sid Highway. There's no way we're not going to. They were in the original, so of course they're going to be in Rebirth. There's just no way, because it's a trilogy, so you wouldn't have Vincent instead not being the sequel. There's just no way. And of course, Katsif, you're going to include them because he was in Final Fantasy VII Remake, so you're going to include him. There's just no way. And I think we're going to meet Yuffie early on. I don't think we're going to... The way she was riding the Chocobo in her ending to kind of like find Avalanche, us, I think we're going to meet her either somewhere to the woods or we're going to meet her somewhere else that we were not expecting, because the timeline's been changed so much. I bet money that we're going to meet her somewhere that we were not expecting. I think we're going to meet her, but someplace we're not expecting. Of course, in the trailer with Rebirth, I think we're going to experience Nibelheim. The Nibelheim incident, I think we're going to see it firsthand. I hope we get to control Sephiroth. I wish, because that would be such a wish fulfillment. They don't have to do it, but that would be a wish fulfillment. I would want to control Sephiroth, at least once. It doesn't have to be the entire game, but that would be cool if we get to play Sephiroth. You know what would be actually cool, and they couldn't do it, because I don't think they would have the balls to do it? Us playing Sephiroth and beating the entire crew. I think it would be awesome if we could play Sephiroth. And because this is going to be like an Empire Strikes Back, I think we should play Sephiroth when he actually beats the team. And it's a major victory. Like, I think this sequel or Rebirth is going to end on a downer. I think we should play Sephiroth, and I don't think they're going to do it, but I think we should play Sephiroth as he's being the main crew and he gets the major victory, and then it ends in a downer ending. They know what they're doing, but I don't think they're going to do it. I think they're going to do it for the Nibelheim incident, but I don't think they're going to let us do it towards the end to just screw with us. Because I would be happy, and that would surprise me if they actually have the balls to do that. They won't do it. I know they won't. Yeah, so besides obvious ones, Sid and Vincent being there, and the Black Materia, Sephiroth playing him, and yeah. Other theories, I think we're still going to get Event Children visions. Just like what we got in Remake, I think we're going to get it. And I think the timeline is going to just be, like I said, I think Sephiroth is going to win. If I haven't said it, I think Sephiroth is going to win in Rebirth. And I think the timeline is going to be changed so much that whoever played the third disc and finished Final Fantasy VII, the original one, I think it's going to be totally different. I think the final level is going to be at the edge of creation, because it was in the original Final Fantasy VII. I think it is going to be there, but I think it's going to be totally different. I think that's how it's going to end, at the edge of creation. They teased it in Remake, and it kind of makes me think of like 7 seconds, like what Sephiroth was thinking. I think he means specifically Aerith, like 7 seconds to decide if he wants to save the world or say Aerith. He will have 7 seconds. I think that's a good way to stop this video. I'm sorry if I talked more and kind of fanboyed out more about Final Fantasy VII, but remakes got me so curious because of that bombshell ending, and now that Rebirth trailer came out, I think a few months ago, but because of that, I'm excited about Rebirth. I want to see where it goes now that I finished both the DLC and the main story, the OG Final Fantasy VII Remake. So the plan for Final Fantasy VII, we're gonna go ahead and finish Heart Mode. This will be in between streaming. I'm gonna see if I can do a video of fighting Vice. Got a Vice? Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and do a video of him, and I probably will do it in hard mode. I'm gonna go ahead and do a video on Sephiroth on hard mode too, because that's just gonna be brutal, but it's epic. It's an epic fight that deserves to be revisited again. I'm not gonna do another intermission boss battle. I just want to get the two that I haven't seen before. There might be a few cutscenes for the main story, not for intermission. I think I utilize it a lot, and I don't care about the side quests and show cutscenes of them. You can just watch them on YouTube. Well, anyway, of course, stay tuned, and I got nothing clever for Final Fantasy VII, sadly.